Good morning. Iran's new civilian government cannot get itself together, and there is worry now it may be coming apart. Vietnam now claims that its troops and its proxy Cambodian rebels now control all of Cambodia.
The Vietnamese used American weapons and tactics to crush the Cambodian communists. And 3 Cuban exiles go on trial today, charged with killing former Chilean diplomat Orlando Letelier.
Coming up, we'll have some notes from Hollywood on the start of a landmark legal trial, Lee Marvin versus Lee Marvin's home companion.
And we'll hear that inflation is causing government officials to have second thoughts about making mass transit accessible to the handicapped.
It's Tuesday, January 9th, and this is the CBS Morning News with Richard Threlkeld in New York and Leslie Stahl in Washington.
Efforts to set up a new civilian government in Iran have suffered a serious setback today. General Fakhruddin Jam, who was named war minister in Premier Shahpur Bakhtiar's 4-day-old cabinet, has decided now not to join the government. He and Bakhtiar reportedly could not agree on key changes in Iran's military establishment. The breakdown in talks has now led to speculation about a right-wing coup there. No major violence reported today, but Tehran is still shut down in the aftermath of a general strike, and the Shah is still on the scene. His plans for a long vacation elsewhere still indefinite. Leslie?
After remaining non-committal on whether the Shah should leave the country, the U.S. has now advised him that it would be best for stability in Iran if he departed temporarily. The New York Times reports that Ambassador William Sullivan asked for and received new instructions allowing him to reply favorably when the Shah asked whether he should leave. Moreover, the State Department acknowledged that the U.S. has been urging Iranian military officers to support that new civilian government. Marvin Kalb reports.
The United States is concerned about the possibility that the Iranian military may stage a coup against the newly installed civilian regime. For that reason, a top American general, Robert Heiser, who is deputy commander of American forces in Europe, has just spent several days in Tehran trying to persuade his friends in the Iranian military to support the civilian government headed by Shahpur Bakhtiar. Without the support of the military, U.S. officials feel that the Bakhtiar regime cannot last. Even with military support, its political longevity is questionable because it does not have the backing of the powerful religious leaders who are sparking the nationwide revolt against the Shah and any semblance of his authority. Officials believe that Iranian society is simply crumbling away. And though they are backing Bakhtiar, they have very little confidence in his regime or in its ability to restore political order and oil production. A high State Department official said last week that the U.S. can cope without Iranian oil for 6 months or longer without having to impose mandatory controls. That judgment seemed to have changed over the past weekend, Energy Secretary Schlesinger saying that mandatory controls of various kinds may be necessary after only 3 months of an Iranian oil shutdown. Thus, the situation there appears to be getting bleaker, and its effect on the U.S. could be more immediate than officials here had earlier believed. Marvin Kalb, CBS News, the State Department.
Cambodia's new Revolutionary Council, backed by invading Vietnamese troops, said today it has complete control of the country. A statement broadcast from Phnom Penh and Hanoi said the old Khmer Rouge regime has now ceased to exist. But in Peking, Chinese official press said it would continue to support that ousted regime in a guerrilla war against the new rulers. Meantime, a war of words is shaping up at the United Nations. Prince Norodom Sihanouk, the former Cambodian monarch, is on his way to New York to ask for an emergency session of the Security Council. He says he will also try to meet with Secretary of State Cyrus Vance. Leslie?
State Department spokesman Harding Carter said yesterday that Vietnam's invasion of Cambodia raises the danger of a wider conflict and indicated that a major U.S. diplomatic effort will concentrate on preventing a confrontation between China and the Soviet Union. Sources also indicate that after an internal debate, the administration has decided to support the Cambodian position against Vietnam when and if the question comes up before the United Nations. The debate focused on which is worse, that Vietnam invaded another country's territory, or that the Cambodian government apparently practiced genocide against its own people. The administration reportedly has concluded that the higher principle is territorial integrity. Ike Pappas has a report on how the Vietnamese waged their battle against Cambodia.
Vietnamese drive into Cambodia was spearheaded by much of the American military equipment left behind when the communists took over South Vietnam in the spring of 1975. Government sources told CBS News former American Air Force F-5 and A-37 fighters bombed numerous locations in and around Phnom Penh in advance of Vietnamese ground troops who may have used one-time U.S. Army armored personnel carriers to close rapidly on the Cambodian capital. 73 F-5s, 113 A-37s, and at least 1,200 APCs were among the estimated $5 billion worth of American arms and equipment abandoned to the north, included with thousands of rifles, artillery pieces, and tanks. Pentagon sources said since the equipment fell into Vietnamese hands, the communists have adopted American techniques of warfare, the heavy use of airstrikes before armor-led troop assaults. Among the targets hit by the American-made planes, a new airport north of Phnom Penh, several key rail lines, and the port of Kampong Som, formerly known as Sihanoukville. Ike Pappas, CBS News, Washington.
The time now, 6 minutes after the hour.
Hi, I'm Parker Stevenson. I'd like to tell you something about young people. They get involved with and care about their communities more than most people realize. I'm a United Way volunteer, and so are many of my friends who get involved with water safety programs sponsored by the Red Cross. By helping others, we learn about ourselves. We learn that each of us can make a real difference in somebody's life. You can too, through the United Way. Thanks to you, it works for all of us. The United Way.
Frank, you were supposed to take that pill before the meal.
Oh, no, after.
One's not enough. You got to take two, and it's before meals.
You take all medicine after meals.
Daddy, why don't you read the label?
Don't trust your memory with medicine. Read the label. It tells what it's for, when and how much to take, even when not to take it. So don't trust your memory.
We're all wrong. From now on, I'll read the label.
The Council on Family Health.
Hey, hold it. Now, you say you can see me as a nuclear medicine technologist?
You got it.
Come on.
Hold it. We can see you a respiratory therapist, dental hygienist, health services manager.
Who's your friend, Johnson?
With 200 jobs in healthcare, we can see you...
Wait a minute, what kind of care?
Healthcare.
You sure you got the right guy? That's a good question.
Tell me, are you taking science and math in high school?
Yeah?
We're sure.
Well, that's it?
Not quite. After high school, you'll need training. Some jobs take 6 months, others a few years.
Simple, huh?
Simple? No. Possible? Yes. Read about it. Think about it. For your free copy of 200 Health Careers, write National Health Council, Box 40, Radio City Station, New York, New York, 10019.
Is this for real?
It's for real.
Now, 8 minutes after the hour.
They said it wouldn't last, and it didn't. And now, 8 years after actor Lee Marvin and his companion Michelle Triola called it quits, they'll go to court in Los Angeles today for the start of a landmark trial to decide whether there really is such a thing as palimony. That is shorthand for claiming that because two people live together, even though they're not married, one or the other may later be entitled to everything from alimony to pension benefits. In Ms. Triola's case, she claims she gave up a singing career to live with Marvin because he promised to support her for life. So she is suing him for the money she figures she would have gotten in alimony if they were married, $1 million. Marvin is countersuing Ms. Triola for the same amount. And the decision in that case will have a bearing on cases in 15 other states where other one-time pals are suing each other for palimony. Leslie?
The U.S. District Court building here will be under tight security today as 3 anti-Castro exiles go on trial for the murder of former Chilean ambassador to Washington, Orlando Letelier. Robert Shackney has a report.
2.5 years after the assassination, prosecutors will be trying to prove that a Chilean secret police conspiracy was responsible, that the bomb that blew up this car and took the life of former Chilean Foreign Minister Orlando Letelier and a young American associate, Ronnie Moffett, had been detonated on the orders of Major General Juan Manuel Contreras, then the commander of DINA, the Chilean junta's secret police agency. The principal witness will be Michael Townley, an American who lived in Chile, who worked as a DINA agent, and who since pleaded guilty to conspiring to kill Letelier, an outspoken critic of the Chilean military government. It's going to be an unusual trial in a lot of ways. The principal defendants won't be there. General Contreras and two of his subordinates who've been indicted with him are in Chile, fighting extradition, and the Chilean courts show no sign of preparing to act very quickly. Two other defendants are fugitives, so only 3 defendants, all anti-Castro Cubans, will appear in court. It's charged that the Chilean secret police recruited these Cubans to plant the bomb and detonate it. There's no evidence that publicly connects the Chilean military junta to the conspiracy itself, but General Contreras had been a confidant of Chilean President Augusto Pinochet, so what unfolds in court in Washington, at the very least, is going to be painful and awkward for the government of Chile. Robert Shackney, CBS News, Washington.
In Chicago, Cook County's prosecutor says he is going to seek the death penalty for John Wayne Gacy, who has just been indicted in a mass murder case involving as many as 32 victims. Gacy is already charged with 7 of the murders. Police recently found the bodies of 26 people under his house. He will be arraigned on the charges tomorrow. Sad news today for the world of jazz. Charles Mingus, the bass player and jazz composer, has died at his home in Mexico at age 56. In his time, Charles Mingus played with them all: Louis Armstrong, Lionel Hampton, Charlie Parker. Charles Mingus died of what has become known as Lou Gehrig's disease. He was composing right up to the end. And all the bad winter weather in Ohio the past 2 years has got the psychiatrists there worried that it's starting to drive Ohioans a little crazy. Dr. Walter Smithson of the Central Psychiatric Clinic in Cincinnati says the weather is making people in Ohio very pessimistic and prone to stress reactions. The best remedy, says the doctor, is to give them a good deal of reassurance. They're there, Ohio. It's going to be all right.
Now 12 minutes after the hour, and the CBS Morning News will continue.
Hello, I'm Beverly Sills, and I'm here to bring you a challenge and a promise. The challenge, to care enough, around the corner and around the world. We are a global family, sharing common hopes and common concerns. And in this family, we are responsible for one another, to provide life-giving programs of hope and opportunity, for our children to learn, for our aged to live in dignity, for a new immigrant to belong, for our handicapped to realize their fullest potential, for our brethren in lands of oppression to find freedom. And the promise of 5,000 years of Jewish tradition, the promise of a better world. So you see, the challenge and the promise are one. We are one.
Somebody in my outfit had to be giving you information. I want him.
John Wayne in Rio Lobo, the CBS Tuesday night movie at 9, 8 Central and Mountain.
Wednesday, from the glamorous Riviera, it's the 5th Annual International Circus Festival of Monte Carlo. Excitement and thrills with host Telly Savalas. Then, it's the 9th Annual Entertainer of the Year Awards, with your favorite stars and everybody's favorite host, Jackie Gleason. How sweet it is! Wednesday at 8:30, 7:30 Central and Mountain.
Saturday.
Mean I'm off the team? Yeah. Just because of school?
The White Shadow fights to save a player from the influence of his old gang. Then, a young man, a young woman, and the dream they share.
Figure skating. Figure skating?
Scrawny kid. He's not even going to be able to lift you.
It's tough. It's work.
What price will they pay to make their dream become a reality? Champions, a love story you'll never forget, follows The White Shadow on its new day, Saturday at 8, 7 Central and Mountain.
14 minutes after the hour.
The Carter administration thinks that a new law is needed allowing pharmacists to substitute cheaper generic drugs for the popular brand name products prescribed by doctors. The administration is expected to propose the new law today, which it claims could save consumers about 5% of their yearly drug bill. The nation's big-name pharmaceutical makers oppose the legislation. Other industries are opposing the Clean Air Act and want the government to make major changes in it. In fact, the Business Roundtable has created a special air quality project which will lobby for a relaxation in air pollution controls. The businessmen think that the air pollution controls are overly stringent in the current economy. And industry will have as its allies several city governments, which are finding it impossible to finance the enforcement requirements, such as vehicle inspection.
Now here's Ray Gandolf with a most valuable and very rich ball player, plus some other sports. Ray?
Well, Dick, when Pete Rose signed that 4-year contract with the Philadelphia Phillies for $800,000 a year, you knew that Jim Rice couldn't be far behind. And yesterday, the Boston Red Sox announced that they have signed the American League's most valuable player to a new 7-year contract for a reported $5.4 million. That makes Rice the highest paid baseball player in history in total salary. But if you indulge in a little long division, you'll find him still about $30,000 a year short of Rose in annual salary. South African heavyweight Kali Kanotsi has had his entry visa to the United States revoked. And that blocks his scheduled fight Saturday night in Miami with Bill Sharkey, a fight opposed by American civil rights groups. Kanotsi, a former policeman, once shot a young black man in the legs during a demonstration. In a major college basketball upset, Vanderbilt beat previously undefeated and 5th-ranked Louisiana State last night 88-87. In the NBA's only game, Milwaukee beat Houston 116-104. The only critical thing at stake in last night's National Hockey League game in Montreal was Guy Lafleur's 20 consecutive game scoring streak, and preservation took a long time. The only goal in the first period came when the other Guy, Lapointe, intercepted a Minnesota clearing pass and scored on a power play. Another attempt to clear the puck by Minnesota went astray in the second period. Réjean Houle fired it into Mario Tremblay, and Tremblay maneuvered it past goalie Gary Edwards for a 2-0 Montreal lead. The North Stars got on the board in the third period when Mike Polic scored off a face-off, and it was 2-1. Then with 2 minutes left, the Stars took Edwards off the ice, and Lafleur flung a shot into the empty net with just 36 seconds remaining. Montreal won 3-1, his scoring streak now 21 games, 7 short of the league record held by Guy Lafleur. One other game last night, Vancouver beat Toronto 5-1. Last November, General Manager Joe Thomas of the San Francisco 49ers in the sports jacket, after firing Pete McCulley, put his arm around Fred O'Connor and announced that O'Connor was the new coach who would lead the 49ers out of the wilderness of the National Football League. Yesterday, Thomas and O'Connor were fired, and the 49ers, still in the wilderness, are expected to hire Stanford coach Bill Walsh. And the International Skiing Federation disqualified Ken Reid of Canada, winner of a World Cup downhill race in France last Saturday, for wearing an illegal suit. The outfit was not sufficiently porous, something to do with wind resistance. And we were relieved to hear that. With all the advertising that those skiers carry on their gear, we thought for a minute that Reid might have been disqualified for boosting some Canadian mineral water on his bottom instead of Perrier.
The time now, exactly 18 minutes after the hour.
When your engine begins to sound noisy and performance drops, first aid is available in K-Site Motor Honey. You add it to your crankcase oil. Motor Honey plates engine parts with a tough, slippery oil film to help your car run quiet and smooth. For pocket change, get K-Site Motor Honey wherever automotive products are sold. It's guaranteed to work to your satisfaction or double your money back. Just send proof of purchase to Hastings Manufacturing Company.
You're looking at all the life insurance policies you may ever need. One policy that, as your needs change, allows you within limits to raise or lower your coverage. Raise or lower your premium payments. One policy that eliminates the need to choose between cash value and term protection. One policy you can buy today that will meet your changing needs tomorrow. New adjustable life from the Banker's Life. For facts, write The Banker's Life, Des Moines, Iowa.
When a family's building up an appetite, what's the natural snack?
Snack goes granola.
Nature Valley granola bars. Those crunchy treats of 100% natural ingredients. No additives, no preservatives. Wholesome and delicious. In cinnamon, oats and honey, coconut, and peanut. Families are together on Nature Valley granola bars.
Snack goes granola.
Can you get your wash clean, bright, and soft for free? These Purex products save you so much, it's like getting 59 free wash loads a year. You know how Purex bleach saves, but do you know that Purex heavy-duty detergent and Purex Toss and Soft fabric softener save you about 19% over the leading brands? Use these Purex products. If you do an average number of wash loads, it's like getting 59 free wash loads a year. Purex products perform and save.
20 minutes after the hour.
The Supreme Court agreed yesterday to hear arguments about whether universities must admit students with handicaps if the schools believe those students are incapable of handling their chosen careers. This will be the first case before the court involving the handicap clause in the Federal Rehabilitation Act. Meanwhile, proposed rules that would allow the disabled access to public transit have run up against the drive to limit government spending. Barry Serafin reports.
Impatient because of inaction by the Ford administration, representatives of handicapped Americans demonstrated at the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare soon after the Carter administration took office, demanding the implementation of a 1973 law. That law prohibited the exclusion of the disabled from any federally subsidized program. Soon after the demonstrations, HEW issued regulations to carry out that statute. One result has been a proposed requirement by the Transportation Department that all mass public transit be made accessible to the handicapped. In Washington's metro subway system, for example, it is expected to cost $65 million to install elevators at each station for those in wheelchairs. Of the 200,000 people who ride the still-to-be-completed metro each day, only about 20 are in wheelchairs. Modifying old existing rapid rail systems would cost even more. In New York, officials say it would bankrupt the city. In Chicago, the cost is estimated at more than $900 million. That would exceed the total capital investment in that system since 1890. The estimates run to several $billion nationwide, and that, says an industry representative, is too much money to spend on behalf of too few people.
To commit $3 to $8 billion in capital cost, and then to talk about something on the order of $300 to $500 million a year in additional operating costs just to have this kind of a convenience for what really is a relative handful of people, again, is a very wasteful use of very scarce human resources, a waste of money that could go to much better use.
Those who represent the disabled see the new federal law as a matter of basic civil rights and argue that savings are possible through reduced dependency on other federal programs.
It is civil rights. If we don't have access to transportation, we can't get the jobs, we can't get the housing, and disabled people will be stuck in institutions, living at home, not being productive. What we're really talking about is a form of social insurance. The disabled minority is one that anybody can join at a moment's notice.
Somewhat less controversial than rail service is bus service. Over the next several years, the Transbus will begin to be phased in. Buses low to the ground with wide doors, ramps, and lifts. But questions remain about the state of the technology. Transportation Secretary Brock Adams has been wrestling with such questions and the basic conflict between costs and rights. Final decisions are yet to come, but Adams says financial realities will make overnight changes impossible.
We have reached certain limits as to what we can do, and they therefore are part of a number of groups that are saying we would like to have more happen more rapidly, and have run up against the wall of so many dollars and up against a taxpayer's revolt of we don't want to pay any more taxes.
Some officials argue that the interest alone on the amount of money required to make public transportation totally accessible would be enough to provide a car for every handicapped American. But many of those Americans don't want to be separate. The Transportation Department is expected to announce its final regulations at the end of this month. Barry Serafin, CBS News at Metro Center, Washington.
Stay with us. We'll have the top news of the morning, and we'll show you why the space scientists are saying that the planet Jupiter looks like the biggest Easter egg in all creation.
The time now 24 minutes after the hour, and you're on the right channel for more of the CBS Morning News. This is CBS. 25 past the hour.
One of the most watched young Republican politicians around was watched a lot yesterday as he began his second term as governor of Illinois. Governor James Thompson has admitted he'd like to go from the State House to the White House. Bob Faw has more on that.
For Jim Thompson and his wife Jane, this was a day of triumph, the governor's second inaugural following his re-election by the biggest victory margin in Illinois history. After taking the oath of office, Thompson, like most politicians, listed his accomplishments and renewed his pledges. But he also did something very different. As his wife and baby daughter, a crowd of 4,000, and statewide television audience watched, the man who admits he would like to be president swallowed hard and apologized for violating his campaign promise to veto any post-election pay raise for state officials.
In November, I did veto them. But many people have concluded that the manner in which I did so, to paraphrase Macbeth, kept the word of promise to your ear and broke it to your hope. And you were right, and I apologize.
In the middle of all that pomp and ceremony, such an admission was highly unorthodox.
And now the final
it was
question.
warmly received by onlookers and by many state lawmakers still smarting from public criticism after they voted themselves a 40% pay raise. It also suggests that for Illinois' ambitious young governor, a major political blunder was nearly offset by the rarest of political acts, a moment of humility. Bob Faw, CBS News, Chicago.
Layoffs for hundreds of city workers in Cleveland were averted last night when the city council approved a plan to sell more than $5 million worth of city-owned land. Mayor Dennis Kucinich says that should meet the payroll at least through next month, when there'll be a special election on his request to raise the city income tax. That tax request is designed to lift the city out of default. Leslie?
3 years ago, a lonely Jimmy Carter was running for president in the snows of New Hampshire. This year, he's a lot warmer and a lot less lonely, but he's still running. Lee Thornton reports from Guadalupe.
A sort of jogging fever has struck the administration. Well, the president at least. He has jogged every day on Guadalupe, coming out early in the morning when it's coolest. With him have been his personal physician and the Secret Service man who's been assigned to the detail. But this morning, someone new was added. First Lady Rosalind Carter, seen jogging with the president for the first time, and here a little surprised to be caught by the cameras.
Good morning.
All the activity took place in a centuries-old fort adjacent to where the Carters are now staying. Cameras weren't allowed inside until everything was over, but there's no doubt they went round and round. And no one here could recall any other visiting head of government doing any such thing. The president's doctor emerged, looking slightly bushed, but insisting he'd had a good run. And after a walking tour of the fort, the Carters came away saying much the same thing. The president is trying to persuade administration officials to run for relaxation, but it's one of his toughest campaigns. An aide says some of those at the top are resisting all the way. Lee Thornton, CBS News, Guadalupe.
The modern art of political protesting has its roots in India, where Mahatma Gandhi in the 30s organized and led a long series of nonviolent extravaganzas to draw the world's attention to the struggle against British colonial rule. That tradition is still going strong, despite a brief interruption for 2 years of emergency rule under Mrs. Indira Gandhi. But today's Indian protests have been adapted somewhat to the demands of the media age. Peter Collins checked out the choreography at one recent demonstration.
Another day in New Delhi, with Indian camera crews filming another spontaneous political demonstration, orchestrated by one of the many contenders for power here. Every player has his own role in this time-honored scenario. Alert troops, camera crews equipped with stepladders, police, onlookers, and of course, the demonstrators themselves. The police are quite used to handling this type of event.
When the people come in a procession and demonstrate and they defy the prohibitory orders, we take them into custody and take them to the police station and send them to the jail.
Also part of the proceedings, but not visibly part of the scene, a traditional payment to the demonstrators, a practice no one here is willing publicly to admit.
No, I cannot say anything. I cannot say anything. I do not know.
As the little plot draws to a close, the participants put down their props and stroll off the stage.
All of this took about 10 minutes. As soon as it was over, traffic here returned to normal. Peter Collins, CBS News, New Delhi.
We're now coming up on 31 minutes after the hour, and you're watching the CBS Morning News with Richard Threlkeld and Leslie Stahl. This portion is sponsored by Changing Times, the money-making, money-saving Kiplinger magazine.
In the next half hour, we'll have a report from Peking on a long talk between some American senators and Chinese Vice Premier Deng Xiaoping.
And we'll hear about how one company came up with a crucial modification of the president's anti-inflation program.
In our top story this morning, Iran's new premier, Shapur Bakhtiar, was supposed to present his new cabinet to Parliament, but he has not been able to put the pieces together. The key stumbling block, the refusal of General Feridun Jam, who was selected as war minister, to go along with changes in the role of the military. Meantime, some other opposition leaders have been jockeying for position, anticipating the failure of Bakhtiar's efforts to restore political stability. Yesterday, there was a mass demonstration called by the Ayatollah Khomeini, the exiled Muslim leader, and Bob McNamara reports on that.
Ayatollah Khomeini's declared National Day of Mourning brought trouble back to the streets of Iranian cities. In Tehran, angry mobs roamed avenues and alleys, chanting death to the Shah, and condemned Iran's new prime minister, Shapur Bakhtiar, as a puppet of the Shah's regime. Some protesters challenged Iranian troops to kill them, and it's reported the nationwide death toll from the day's demonstrations was at least 24 killed and 100 wounded. A few Western diplomats saw the trouble as a possible attempt by Khomeini forces to seriously jeopardize Prime Minister Bakhtiar's chances of getting his new cabinet approved by the Iranian parliament on Thursday. And the demonstrations nationwide appeared to erode a degree of support Bakhtiar had enjoyed. As the street violence escalated, so did the number of funerals at a cemetery outside Tehran. At the same time, the country became flooded with rumors that a right-wing military coup might be attempted to save the Shah. There were also reports the Shah's royal jet had been placed on standby in case the monarch wanted to flee the country on short notice. The palace denied the stories, saying the Shah did not intend to go anywhere until law and order was restored. Bob McNamara, CBS News, Tehran.
The U.S. has quietly shifted its policy in Iran away from full support for the Shah to full support for the Bakhtiar government. The New York Times reports that Ambassador William Sullivan has now advised the Shah that it would be best for stability in Iran if he left the country temporarily. But officials acknowledge that if he does leave, it may be very difficult for him to ever return. Moreover, the State Department has acknowledged that an American four-star general is in Iran trying to persuade the military generals there to switch their allegiance from the Shah to Bakhtiar. On the question of Cambodia, the Carter administration has decided to take the side of the fallen Cambodian government against Vietnam when and if the issue comes before the United Nations. State Department spokesman Harding Carter said yesterday Vietnam is guilty of aggression, and he stressed that Vietnam had invaded Cambodia's territorial integrity. However, Carter made clear the United States' first priority is to prevent the conflict there from growing into a confrontation between China and the Soviet Union.
What we clearly want here is the withdrawal of foreign intervention. We want restraint by all parties, and we want to avoid the expansion of this conflict, both geographically and in terms of the elements involved.
That new Cambodian government, backed by invading forces from Vietnam, today claimed to have complete control over the country. A communique from the new president said the old Pol Pot regime has ceased to exist. Cambodia's one-time ruler, Prince Norodom Sihanouk, is now on his way to the United States. He said today that he plans to meet with Secretary of State Vance, as well as pleading his country's own case at the United Nations. More on that upcoming UN debate now from Bill McLaughlin.
The emotional appeals for Cambodia will come from the prince who ruled it until he was overthrown in a U.S.-backed coup a decade ago, Norodom Sihanouk. Prince Sihanouk arrives in New York tonight and may address the Security Council as early as tomorrow. Although Sihanouk backed the Khmer Rouge rebels from exile in Peking, after their victory in April 1975 and his return to Phnom Penh, he became their prisoner. So, despite the Chinese, to whom Sihanouk probably owes his life, it's not thought likely here that he will plead the case of the regime that has reportedly been responsible for the deaths of tens of thousands of fellow Cambodians and the virtual destruction of the country. The U.S. shares Sihanouk's dilemma. U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Andrew Young, expressed publicly what many officials may have felt privately. The disappearance of the Khmer Rouge regime is not a bad thing for the Cambodian people.
It's always wrong for a country to transgress the borders of another country. And that's the case in the Vietnamese invasion of Cambodia. But it's very, very hard for me to have any sympathy for a government that's killed so many of its own citizens. So I must confess that I'm not terribly upset.
Still, China and the U.S. have started a new period of friendly relations, as exemplified by this American New Year's Eve party in Peking to celebrate both 1979 and the beginning of full diplomatic relations between the two nations. So the U.S. must make some gesture to support China's verbal war with the Soviets of the UN, while doing its utmost to make certain it remains only a war of words. Bill McLaughlin, CBS News at the United Nations.
Now 36 minutes after the hour.
Have you heard the good news? Experts forecast that in the 1980s, living standards will be higher. You'll be able to enjoy real buying power and prosperity. They claim you could cash in and cash in big if you know in advance what to expect. Reach for your pencil and paper so you can write for this amazing book, 99 New Ideas, which shows you how to start right now making and saving real money. For example, should you buy or rent your house? The answer will surprise you. How can you cut your supermarket bill, yet actually eat better? What's the smart way to buy a car, appliances, clothing? Chances are you'd pay a lot of money for a book as powerful as this. You can't buy it in any store at any price, yet you can get it free when you try Changing Times magazine for 6 months. It keeps you up to date every month with answers to questions like, what are today's best bargains? And when is a sale a real sale? How can you use credit to actually save money? When you have extra cash, where should you put it? Regular subscription price to Changing Times alone is $12 a year. However, you get both 6 full months of Changing Times and the big book, 99 New Ideas, for only $4. And here's your free bonus. Send your check today and also get this exclusive report, Your Income Tax, just published. How you can take advantage of little-known money-saving deductions in the new tax laws. Changing Times tax experts painstakingly dug through all the changes in new tax laws to discover for you dozens of brand-new allowances and deductions. Just one of these new deductions could be worth hundreds of extra dollars to you. Send $4 to Changing Times,
TV 515,
Washington, D.C. Look at what you save. The regular subscription price of Changing Times alone is $12 a year, but you get all of this for only $4 when you send your check today. The amazing book, 99 New Ideas, plus this exclusive income tax report, plus 6 full months of Changing Times. If you're not completely satisfied, keep these 2 books and your first issue of Changing Times, and we'll refund your money gladly. Now, what could be more fair? So send $4 to Changing Times,
TV 515,
Washington, D.C.
Now 39 minutes after the hour.
China's Vice Premier Deng Xiaoping played host to another group of American lawmakers today. A Senate task force on military matters in the Pacific was treated to a banquet in Peking's Great Hall of the People. Among the guests, the widow of former Premier Zhou Enlai. Earlier, Deng and the senators had an extensive talk about the future of Taiwan, and Bernard Kalb reports on that.
Vice Premier Deng Xiaoping welcomed the senators in the Great Hall of the People. In less than 3 weeks, he'll be shaking American hands in Washington during his official visit to the U.S. But this time, Capitol Hill came to Peking to discuss a variety of issues relating to security in the Pacific. U.S. sources later reported that Deng outlined a scenario for Taiwan that appeared to represent forward movement toward a more conciliatory Chinese position, though it was contingent on Taiwan first being reunited with the mainland. There were still some unanswered questions in all this, but it was clear that Deng's remarks had aroused the visitors' interest. Senator Glenn later said it was his understanding that what Deng said today went considerably beyond anything previously expressed by the Chinese.
Once Taiwan would be recognized as a region of China, as part of China, then it would be given full autonomy, and even to the point of keeping some of their own armed forces. After Taiwan had been reunited with mainland China, that at that time they would determine their own social system, their own living standards, and they could develop as they saw fit, including what economic system they wished to use, even if it was not communism. And at that point it was likened to the possibility of being like Macau and Hong Kong.
Even beyond the significance of Deng's remarks, his readiness to meet with the senators had a dimension of significance. It represented Deng's second meeting with a visiting U.S. congressional delegation in about a week, a clear signal of China's eagerness to expand its new relationship with the United States. Bernard Kalb, CBS News, Peking.
And there is more evidence that China's new leaders are letting the Chinese say just about anything they want on those wall posters in Peking. The latest went up yesterday near Mao Zedong's mausoleum. It is an unsigned, open letter to Jimmy Carter. It says, among other things, we Chinese have been separated for years by an iron curtain. We have been taught to think of Americans as goblins and devils. We ask that the curtain now be removed. We have never enjoyed human rights in China. We would like to talk to you about the human rights problem here. End quote. It took somebody about 50 yards, a wall poster, to say all that. Leslie?
President Carter returns to the White House tonight from Guadeloupe after spending 2 days in the sun. Yesterday, he and Mrs. Carter jogged around an ancient fortress and then went into seclusion at a seaside villa. Robert Pierpine, also in sunny Guadeloupe, has a report on the Big Four summit.
After 5 days of fun in the Guadeloupe sun, it's back to the cold reality of Washington for Jimmy Carter. Of course, it wasn't all sand and surf for the president, who did spend some time in conference with France's President Giscard d'Estaing, who convened this Sunshine Summit, and with Britain's Prime Minister Callahan and West Germany's Chancellor Schmidt. We were told on the highest authority, in case you've not already guessed it, that the reason these men all appeared in rather formal-looking coat and tie before cameras was the obvious. They did not want the voters at home in the frozen north to think they spent all their time here relaxing in the sun. In fact, the French went to some lengths to try to persuade a Paris newspaper not to publish a picture of Giscard in a bathing suit. To his credit, Jimmy Carter did not seem to care all that much. He was photographed in various outfits, jogging, fishing, and just plain playing around. Just how much was accomplished here is hard to say, although Mr. Carter did obtain his colleagues' backing for quick Senate ratification of SALT II if and when it is finally negotiated with the Soviet Union. That is just one of the problems that awaits the president on his return to Washington tonight. There is also the preparation of his State of the Union message, which this year, contrary to long-standing tradition, will be delivered after Congress gets a look at the administration's new budget. The struggle with Congress over SALT II and the battle over that stingy budget are expected to dominate President Carter's calendar during the coming months, doubtless bringing him waves of nostalgia for these short, happy days on a French island in the Caribbean. Robert Pierpoint, CBS News, Guadeloupe.
Another problem facing the president when he comes home concerns his decision on a new kind of aircraft carrier for the Navy. Last week, Mr. Carter reportedly turned down the Navy's request for another 90,000-ton carrier and instead chose a new type of oil-burning vessel called the CVV, which would cost about $140 million less. The Navy has made a last-ditch effort to change the president's mind by appealing to him in Guadeloupe, but White House officials say it has been to no avail. Last year, Mr. Carter's veto of a nuclear aircraft carrier touched off a lengthy confrontation with Congress, and some officials fear this decision could do the same. Dick?
Yesterday marked the beginning of a second term in office for California's Governor Jerry Brown, and his inaugural set many Democrats to thinking about his possible role as a challenger to President Carter next year. Miriam Bier reports.
To some, it was the kickoff of more than a second gubernatorial term. It was the opening of a campaign for the presidency. Democrat Jerry Brown announced it's time to write the lessons of California's Proposition 13 into the U.S. Constitution by amendment requiring a balanced federal budget. To his present constituents, Brown offered more immediate tax relief.
I propose that this year, the state government lower the amount of taxes it collects for $100 of income to the level of 4 years ago. That will require a $1 billion tax cut.
And Brown called for cuts in government jobs, a small fraction of the 250,000 employed by the state.
A reduction of 5,000 is reasonable and attainable without significant layoffs. It will mean that in 1980, we will operate government with fewer employees than we did in 1977.
State employee spokesmen say those cuts will hurt vital services and help no one but presidential hopeful Jerry Brown.
I think he's added up the numbers, and he figures that there are less governmental employees than there are employees of big business or Ford Motor Company or whatever. And he's playing the numbers, and he's chosen to make the public employee the scapegoat.
But critical as they are of Brown, state employee representatives admire his political skill. They say if President Carter does falter, it's likely to be over the economy. And California's Governor Brown then could seek the 1980 presidential nomination as the only Democrat who's delivered for the angry taxpayer. Miriam Bier, CBS News, Los Angeles.
14 minutes before the hour, and there's much more to report this Tuesday morning.
Here's that special offer from Changing Times. Remember, regular annual subscription price of Changing Times alone is $12, but you get all this for only $4. 6 months of Changing Times, plus these 2 books that you can't buy anywhere. Send $4 to Changing Times,
TV 515.
Washington, D.C. Not completely satisfied, you keep the 2 books, plus your first issue of Changing Times, and we'll refund your money. What could be more fair? Send $4 to Changing Times,
TV 515.
Washington, D.C.
Now that you've had a drink, oh, what a time to think.
Wow, I could have had a V8.
With just 1 sip to go, that's the wrong time to know.
Wow, I could have had a V8.
V8 Cocktail Vegetable Juice is a great-tasting, healthful blend that's naturally low in calories, only 35 a 6-ounce serving. But remember, the time to think of having a V8 is before you've had something else.
Wow, I could have had a V8.
Veal cordon bleu, spaghetti and meatballs, corn on the cob.
When most people diet, they think they have to sacrifice all the foods they love. But on today's Weight Watchers program, you can enjoy delicious and satisfying foods while you learn to lose weight.
Madam, why not join Weight Watchers instead? I did.
Join Weight Watchers now.
What a mess. Christy Graff was in, wanted to know all about laxatives. Well, lots of folks need help now and then, so I recommended X-Lax pills. But she's the doubting type, so we had to look everything up. Turns out there's a lot to know about X-Lax. It contains a medically proven effective ingredient that stimulates your system's own natural rhythm. Your system's own. Now Christy's a believer, and I'm even surer about easy-to-take X-Lax pills.
12 minutes before the hour.
The U.S. dollar was fractionally higher today on most foreign money markets. Gold prices also rose, up 90 cents in London. The stock market lost a bit of ground yesterday following its best week in 4 months. The Dow Jones Industrial Average was down yesterday more than 2.5 points in light trading. Leslie?
The price of milk is skyrocketing. Nationally, the price of a gallon rose about 19% last year, and government economists say consumers can expect to pay prices as high as they are now, if not higher, for the next few months at least. According to the experts, a major reason for the sharp price increase is rising beef prices, which have forced consumers to switch to cheese as a meat substitute. In this world where supply and demand dictate prices, the increased appetite for cheese is forcing the price of your bottle of milk to rise. George Herman has a report on a company that convinced President Carter to modify his anti-inflation program.
The Payco Company of Minneapolis has come up with a small but crucial modification of the administration's wage guidelines. It has incorporated the administration's proposed real wage insurance plan as a part of a union contract. Under the real wage insurance proposal, President Carter wants Congress to give workers a tax refund equal to the difference between the allowable pay increase of 7% and the actual rate of inflation for the year. Congress, though, has indicated some reluctance and may leave workers without this unique protection against inflation of more than 7%. Payco offered its workers the allowable 7%. They struck for more, and eventually Payco made its unusual offer. The company would pay the difference between the 7% and the official rate of inflation at the end of a year, up to the inflation rate of 10% as in the administration's proposal. The workers accepted, and the agreement went to Washington to see if it was in compliance with the guidelines. The question went all the way up to the president, and eventually the Payco plan was ruled to be in compliance. The reasoning was that since inflation next year is officially predicted not to exceed 7%, the plan would cost nothing. The official reasoning is more like an official fiction, since a lot of people, both in and out of the administration, think inflation will exceed that magic number. In any case, the Carter administration has now accepted this company wage insurance plan from PAYCO, and it's obviously willing to accept it from other companies. And the pay raise guideline may thus be eased by private action, even if Congress refuses to give workers the proposed tax refunds. If Congress does act, of course, it will write the law so that either the company insurance or the tax refund gives way, and nobody gets the benefit of two inflation insurance policies. George Herman, CBS News, Washington.
Severe cold weather persists in the middle of the country and has extended to the northeast, where northern New England got heavy doses of snow yesterday, along with the cold. In the west, Idaho's Governor John Evans has declared 2 counties a disaster area, counties where the Snake River, frozen for a 17-mile stretch, burst over its banks to threaten farmland and about 150 homes. Below zero temperatures expected to continue there. Officials say the situation could get worse before it gets better. The west has all the worst of today's weather. Rain all along the coast, changing to snow inland from northern Arizona through Montana. Some snow flurries continuing around the Great Lakes, but the rest of the country is generally clear and dry. Some of the high temperatures and weather conditions predicted for later today: 30 and sunny in New York City, 67 partly cloudy and windy in Miami, chilly 13, a chance of snow in Chicago, 36 partly cloudy in Little Rock, 32, a chance of snow by tonight in Cheyenne, 48, a pretty good chance of snow by tonight in Albuquerque, and 64 degrees with rain ending this morning in Los Angeles. And if you've just been listening to us instead of watching the past few minutes, you might want to take a look now, especially if you like to do a bit of stargazing, because we've got some of the prettiest pictures of the planet Jupiter you've ever seen, courtesy of the space agency's Voyager 1 spacecraft, which has so far sent back about 100 pictures as it closes in on Jupiter. David Dow tells us more about that from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California.
They're the first of a new series of 30,000 photos that will give man his most intimate look at Jupiter, the gaseous, mysteriously colored body that is the solar system's largest planet. They show distinctly the great red spot, the oval cloud system that is itself 3 times the size of Earth. Time-lapse photography shows the closest of 13 or 14 satellites or moons orbiting the planet. The Jupiter photos were shot by Voyager 1, launched 16 months ago, now 34 million miles from Jupiter, en route to its closest encounter, 174,000 miles, in early March. A companion, Voyager 2, will join it a few months later. Scientists hope the 2 missions combined will fill in many blanks about the origin and climate of Jupiter and the solar system, and of what may be some giant lunar ice cubes circling Jupiter.
There is sketchy but fairly persuasive evidence that some of the satellites of Jupiter are not rocky, that they are composed largely of ice, several of them. So that we would, for the first time, be seeing objects the size of our moon or the planet Mercury, which are not made of rock but are of icy composition in the interior and in some cases on the surface as well.
Jupiter is the first leg of a space odyssey for the Voyager craft that will take them next to Saturn and could result in Voyager 2 visiting one of the most distant planets, Uranus, in 1986. David Dow, CBS News, at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena.
6 minutes before the hour, Richard Threlkell and Leslie Stahl will be right back.
Attention everyone who loves Guy Lombardo music, including everyone who sent for our Guy Lombardo TV album last year. This year, for the first time, we are able to offer you what we believe is the most beautiful Guy Lombardo album ever made. Every song is new and different from last year's TV album. This extraordinary new Guy Lombardo treasury brings you beautiful medleys of not 20, not 40, but 50 hits. You get the most loved hits of your life. again the most beautiful listening you've ever known. Guy Lombardo, 50 years, 50 hits. A completely new collection of beautiful medleys, now yours for the first time. The complete record collection is only $7.98. Total tape treasury only $9.98. Not sold in any store. Be sure to order yours now.
Rush, $7.98 for record album, $9.98 for 8-track tape to 50 Guy Hits. Box 3535, Grand Central Station, New York, New York. You must be delighted, no money back. So you don't forget, mail before midnight tomorrow. Just $7.98 for album, $9.98 for tape to 50 Guy Hits. Box 3535, Grand Central Station, New York, New York. Be sure to mail now to 50 Guy Hits. Box 3535, Grand Central Station, New York, New York.
4 minutes before the hour.
Now here's a bit of what to expect this Tuesday, January 9th. While some U.S. senators are in Peking, some other U.S. senators are in Moscow to be wined and dined by the Russians. The senators, led by Minority Leader Howard Baker, are all Republicans. The reason they are being wined and dined is because the Russians are trying to lobby them to vote yes on the upcoming Strategic Arms Limitation Treaty. And the Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences, which gives out the Grammys for Best Records, has finally listed its nominations for this year. And right up there with the Bee Gees, the Rolling Stones, and Quincy Jones is Richard Nixon. That's right, Richard Nixon, nominated for the record of the Nixon interviews with David Frost in the category of Best Spoken or Dramatic Readings. It is the first time any former president has ever been nominated for an entertainment award. Leslie?
President Carter returns from a short vacation in Guadeloupe today. He'll be putting the finishing touches on the budget and the State of the Union message, both of which are due later this month. 3 Cuban exiles go on trial, charged with the bombing murder of ex-Chilean diplomat Orlando Letelier 3 years ago. And diplomatic sources say both Egypt and Israel have agreed to a new round of Mideast peace talks. The question now apparently is when and how. The crises in Iran and Cambodia have eased the Mideast onto a lower rung on the State Department's ladder of priorities. And there's some question as to whether Secretary of State Vance can serve as a mediator any time this month. Dick?
That's the news so far today, and we'll see you tomorrow.
This has been the CBS Morning News with Richard Threlkeld in New York and Leslie Stahl in Washington. For the news of the day ahead, watch the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite tonight.
Somebody in my outfit had to be giving you information. I want him.
John Wayne in Rio Lobo, the CBS Tuesday night movie at 9, 8 Central and Mountain.
That's tonight on CBS.